I still remember that gut-wrenching moment like it was yesterday. The one that hit me harder than any chemo session ever could. There I was, stuck in that cold hospital chair, hooked up to the IV drip pumping poison into my veins to battle the cancer tearing me apart inside. My body felt like lead, weak and worn out, but my mind was sharp enough to check my phone when it buzzed with a bank alert. $120,000 withdrawn, transfer complete. That was it. My heart dropped like a rock. That money was my whole life's savings, everything I'd scraped together over 40 years as a no-frills accountant, pinching pennies, never splurging on myself. It was my safety net, my backup plan if the cancer won the fight, or something to leave behind for my daughter if I didn't make it. With shaky hands, I opened the app. The transfer went straight to her, my Emily, 28 years old, my only kid, the girl I raised all by myself after her dad bailed when she was just a little thing. I'd paid for her college, her first car, even wiped out $100,000 of her credit card mess last year because she swore she was turning things around. But then, right there on her Instagram, fresh posts popped up like a slap in the face. Paris, the Eiffel Tower sparkling under the night sky, Emily grinning ear to ear in some fancy dress, clinking champagne glasses with her buddies. Caption, finally living large, hashtag Paris vibes, thanks mom. Another pic, plush hotel room, bags from high-end stores like Chanel and Louis Vuitton scattered everywhere. Who needs dusty old savings when you've got epic memories? Old cash is so yesterday. My stomach twisted into knots. I could barely breathe. How could she do this? While I sat here all alone, puking my guts out from the treatments, counting down to my next doctor visit, she swiped it all. I knew it was forged. The signature on those transfer papers wasn't mine. She must have dug up that old power of attorney I signed back when I trusted her with my life. Flashbacks hit me hard. Her last hospital visit, 2 months back. She popped in for maybe 20 minutes, eyes glued to her phone, then mumbled about some big meeting and bolted. No real hug, no "love you, mom," no checking if I was hanging in there, just poof, gone. And now this betrayal. $120,000 vanished while I fought this beast solo. Tears stung my eyes, but I held them back. No way was I breaking down in that sterile room full of strangers. I scrolled through those selfies again. Her laugh looked so carefree, so full of joy. Mine wiped clean off my face. That night, back in my tiny apartment, dead quiet, just me and the ache, I started piecing it together. Bank records, emails, charges rolling in, every ritzy hotel, every first-class seat, every spa splurge across Europe. She didn't even try to hide it. She flaunted it online. My health tanked even faster after that. The stress was like fuel on the fire, making the cancer dig in deeper. Docs pushed for more rounds, but cash was running dry now, real dry. But deep down, a spark ignited in me, a quiet rage that said I wasn't done fighting, not by a long shot. I'd kept one secret all these years, something not even Emily knew about. Back when I was strong, I stashed away $500,000 in a hidden offshore account. Smart move from a lucky investment, tucked out of sight for emergencies. No one had a clue. I grabbed my laptop and booked a ticket, one way to Paris. I was heading straight for that airport when she and her crew tried to jet off to their next adventure. I had the paperwork locked and loaded. Fraud alerts, reversal docs, the works to lock down what was left and claw back every dime. They figured I was beat down, frail, out of the game. Boy, were they in for a shock. The plane touched down in Paris after the longest flight of my life. My body screamed with every step. Chemo had left me weak, bones aching, skin pale like paper, but that fire inside kept me moving. I dragged my small carry-on through the crowded Charles de Gaulle airport, headscarf hiding what little hair I had left, simple sweater and pants that used to fit better. No one gave me a second look, just another tired older woman in the sea of travelers. I had timed it perfect. Emily's Instagram stories showed her crew checking out of their fancy hotel that morning. Next stop, Rome. Their flight left in 2 hours. I knew the gate from the screenshots I'd saved. Terminal 2E, gate K42. I found a quiet bench near the check-in area, heart pounding so hard I thought it might give out before I even saw her. Then I spotted them. Emily first. Tanned, glowing, designer sunglasses pushed up on her head, wheeling a shiny new Louis Vuitton suitcase, laughing loud with her 2 best friends, arms full of duty-free bags. They looked like they owned the world. My world. The one she'd stolen while I lay in that hospital bed alone. I stayed hidden behind a pillar at first, just watching. She tossed her hair, checked her phone, posted another story. Off to Italy next, living the dream. #no regrets. I felt sick. Not from the cancer this time, but from the pure hurt. How could the girl I rocked to sleep, the one I gave up vacations for so she could have dance lessons, stand there so carefree? But I wasn't here to cry. I straightened up as best I could, gripped the folder of papers tight, and started walking toward them. Emily saw me when I was about 20 feet away. Her smile froze. The color drained from her face like someone flipped a switch. Her friends noticed and turned, confused. "Mom?" Her voice cracked, high-pitched like a kid caught stealing cookies. What are you doing here?" I stopped right in front of them. My legs shook, but my voice came out steady. "I came to say hello to my daughter and to pick up what's mine." Her friends exchanged looks, nervous giggles dying fast. Emily's eyes darted to the folder in my hand. "Mom, this isn't a good time. We're about to board." "Funny thing about time," I said, quietly but loud enough for them to hear. "I didn't have much left when you took my savings, but I found a little more." I opened the folder slow, pulled out the top sheet, the fraud report I'd filed from the States before I flew. Bank statements showing the forged transfer, power of attorney abuse highlighted in yellow, then the bigger one, proof of my hidden offshore account, untouched, still holding $500,000, and the wire transfer reversal request, already stamped and pending. Emily's mouth opened, closed, no words, just panic in her eyes. One friend whispered, "Emily, what's going on?" I didn't wait for her answer. "You posted all those pictures, honey. Paris lights, champagne, shopping sprees. You called my savings old and boring, said who needs them when you have memories." I paused, let it sink in. Well, I needed them to fight for my life, alone. Tears welled up in her eyes now, real ones, I think, or maybe just fear. "Mom, I was going to pay you back, I swear. It was just a loan. A loan you didn't ask for, a loan you stole." My voice stayed calm, but inside I was breaking all over again. "You knew I was sick. You knew the treatments were killing me piece by piece, and you still took it all." Her friends backed up a step, like they suddenly remembered they had somewhere else to be. Emily grabbed my arm, gentle, desperate. "Please, Mom, don't do this here, not in front of everyone. Let's talk. I messed up, I know I did, but I'm your daughter." I looked at her hand on my arm, the same little hand that used to hold mine crossing the street, the same one that signed my name without asking. "I know you're my daughter," I said, soft. "That's why this hurts so bad." Airport security was starting to glance over. I had one more card to play, the real twist she never saw coming. I pulled out the last paper, a notarized letter from my lawyer. It said if the funds weren't returned in full within 48 hours, charges would be filed. Grand theft, fraud, and I'd make sure every single one of her followers saw the truth, not the pretty selfies but the police reports. Emily's knees buckled a little. She sank onto her suitcase. "Mom, please, I'll give it all back, everything. Just don't ruin me." Her friends looked horrified. One muttered, "We didn't know, Emily. You said it was your money." I stood there, watching my daughter finally feel the weight of what she'd done. The airport noise faded. The announcements, the rolling suitcases, the chatter. It was just us, mother and daughter, betrayer and betrayed. But I wasn't done yet, because what I said next changed everything she thought she knew about me and about forgiveness. If your heart is racing right now, if you're feeling that mix of anger and heartbreak like I did, hit subscribe to Stories Her Heart Holds. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next, the moment I decide whether to press charges or give her one last chance. Trust me, the twist will leave you speechless. Emily's face crumpled like wet paper. She was on her knees now, right there on the airport floor, surrounded by scattered shopping bags and the stares of strangers. Her friends had backed away even farther, phones out but not filming, too scared or too guilty to capture this mess. "Mom," she whispered, voice breaking into little sobs. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I thought you'd be okay. The doctors always say you're strong. I just wanted to feel alive for once. You never let me have anything nice growing up." I felt a fresh wave of hurt crash over me. Never let you? I gave you everything I had. College, debt payoff, my time, my worry. And when I got sick, you couldn't even sit with me for an hour without checking your notifications? She reached for my hand. I didn't pull away, but I didn't hold on either. "Please, give me time. I'll sell the bags, the clothes, everything. I'll wire it back. Just don't call the cops. Don't ruin my life over this." The security guard was closer now, hand on his radio, eyeing us like he might need to step in. Emily's friends muttered excuses and started drifting toward the gate, abandoning her like rats off a sinking ship. That's when the real twist hit, the one I'd been holding back like a loaded gun. I leaned down slow so only she could hear. "You think this is just about the $120,000? Honey, there's more you never knew." Her eyes widened. "What?" "Remember when your dad left? He didn't just walk out. He left me with a secret too, a life insurance policy he took out years before, $300,000 payout if anything happened to him. I never told you because I wanted to save it for your future, for grandkids maybe, or a house. But after he died last year, quietly, heart attack, no big funeral, I collected it, and I put it in that same offshore account." Emily blinked hard, like the words weren't computing. "Dad had insurance? You got $300,000? More now, it grew. The account's at $820,000 total, hidden from everyone, including you, because even back then, a part of me knew trust could break." She stared up at me, mouth open. The girl who always had the quick comeback, the perfect caption, was speechless for the first time. I kept going, voice low and steady. "So when you forged that transfer, you didn't just steal my safety net, you triggered something bigger. The bank flagged it as fraud right away. They froze everything connected, your accounts too. The luxury cards you used in Paris declined this morning. Your Rome flight canceled automatically. You're not going anywhere today." She gasped. "No, Tyler booked it. He said—" "Tyler? Your boyfriend from the stories? The one who posted pics with you at the Eiffel Tower? He already bailed. I saw his DMs when I hacked into your cloud backup last week. Yeah, I learned a few tricks from my accountant days. He told his buddies you were high maintenance, and he was out before the drama hit." Her face went white. Tears streamed down, mascara running black tracks. "He left me? For real?" "Left you high and dry, just like you did to me." The security guy was right there now. "Ma'am, is everything okay? Do we need to call someone?" I shook my head. "No, we're family, working it out." He hesitated, then stepped back. Emily clutched my legs. "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was stupid, greedy. I thought money would fix how empty I felt, but it didn't. It made everything worse." I looked down at her, really looked. The same eyes I saw in baby pictures, the same stubborn chin. My girl, broken now. I crouched down, ignoring the pain in my joints. "I came here to take it all back, to press charges, to make sure you felt what rock bottom feels like. But seeing you like this, it hurts more than the cancer ever did." She sobbed harder. "What do I do?" I pulled out my phone, showed her the transfer app. "I can reverse the freeze, send the $120,000 back to my account. The rest stays hidden. You get nothing more from me. No bailouts, no loans, no safety net. You start over, clean, honest, or you keep running and lose everything for good." She nodded fast. "I'll do it, whatever it takes. Therapy, job, paying you back slow. Just don't hate me." I sighed deep. The anger was still there, burning low, but something softer was creeping in. Forgiveness? Maybe not yet, but a door cracked open. "I don't hate you, Emily. I love you. That's why this cut's so deep. But love doesn't mean letting you destroy me. I hit the button, the reversal processed. Funds started moving back. She hugged me tight, crying into my shoulder. Airport crowds moved around us like we were invisible. As we sat there on the floor, her flight long gone, I whispered one last thing. This isn't the end of your punishment, it's the start of your real life. And if you ever betray me again, there won't be a next time. She pulled back, eyes red but clearer. I won't, I promise. We stood up slow. I was exhausted, body screaming from the travel and stress, but my heart a little lighter. We walked out of that terminal together, not as mother and carefree daughter, but as two women who'd both almost lost everything and found a painful way back. Months later, the cancer scans came back better. Treatment was working. Emily got a real job, waitressing, then office admin. She sent me $500 a month without fail. No fancy posts anymore, just quiet texts. Thinking of you, Mom. Love you. Betrayal costs more than money. It costs time, trust, pieces of your soul. But sometimes, if you're lucky, it costs just enough to wake someone up before it's too late. And sometimes, just sometimes, it teaches both sides what family really means.
I flew home alone that night. Emily wanted to come with me, begged to sit by my side on the plane, but I said no. Not yet, I told her. You need space to feel this, really feel it. She cried at the gate, but she let me go. For the first time, she didn't push. Back in the States, the cancer fight kicked into high gear again. The stress from Paris had set me back. Doctors found the tumors a bit more stubborn. More rounds of chemo. More nights alone in that quiet apartment, staring at the ceiling, wondering if forgiveness was even possible when the hurt ran this deep. Emily started small, texts every day. How are you feeling today, Mom? No emojis, no filters, just plain words. Then voice notes, her voice shaky. I got a job at a coffee shop. Early mornings, bad tips, but it's honest. She sent proof, pay stubs, nothing fancy. $500 wired to my account the first month, then every month after. No excuses. But the real test came 6 months later. My scans showed progress. The cancer was shrinking. Doctors called it a miracle turnaround. I felt stronger, hair starting to grow back in soft gray wisps. I decided to celebrate quietly, booked a small cabin by the lake, the kind of place we used to go when she was little. Just me, nature, and peace. Emily found out somehow, probably from my old neighbor who still checks in. She showed up unannounced at the cabin door one rainy afternoon, soaked, no makeup, holding a cheap umbrella that was doing nothing. Mom, she said, voice small, I know you didn't invite me, but I had to see you, face to face. I let her in. We sat by the fire. Silence stretched long. Then she dropped the bomb, the twist I never saw coming. I found letters, she said, in your old box, the one from Dad, the ones you kept hidden. My stomach dropped. Those letters, from her father, written before he left. Apologies, confessions. He hadn't just walked out, he'd been sick too. Early signs of the same cancer that would kill him years later. He'd taken out that life insurance to protect us, but he'd also admitted in those pages that he was scared. Scared of dragging us down. Scared I'd hate him if he stayed and got worse. Emily's eyes filled. You never told me he was sick. You let me think he was just gone, a deadbeat. I swallowed hard. I wanted to protect you, from the pain, from hating him, or worse, hating yourself for not knowing him. She shook her head. All these years I thought you were the strong one holding everything together, but you were carrying secrets too. You hid his illness, just like I hid how empty I felt. We both lied to protect the other, and it backfired. The room got quiet except for the rain on the roof. I get it now, she whispered. Why you kept that offshore account secret. Why you didn't trust Easy. You weren't punishing me, you were scared I'd break you again, like he almost did. Tears came then, for both of us. Not angry ones, tired, healing ones. She reached into her bag, pulled out an envelope. I sold everything left from Paris. The bags, the jewelry, got $18,000. It's not the full amount yet, but it's a start. And I opened a savings account in your name. Automatic transfers every paycheck. I took the envelope. Inside, bank printouts, a handwritten note. I'm not asking for forgiveness today, just a chance to earn it, one day at a time. We talked till the fire died. About the past, the hurts, the what-ifs.
She admitted the luxury trip wasn't just fun, it was escape, from feeling like a failure, from seeing me sick and not knowing how to fix it. So she ran towards shiny things instead of towards me. I was a coward, she said, but I'm trying not to be anymore. I didn't hug her right away, but when she stood to leave, rain still pouring, I stopped her. Stay, I said. The couch pulls out. We'll make coffee in the morning, talk more. She nodded, eyes shining. I'd like that. That weekend wasn't magic. No big apologies erased everything, but it was real. We laughed a little about old family stories, cried more, started rebuilding something honest. A year later, my cancer's in remission, full remission. Emily moved closer, got a better job in admin, steady pay. She visits every weekend, brings groceries, sits through my doctor appointments. No more selfies of luxury, just pictures of us, coffee mugs, lake walks, quiet smiles. The betrayal cost us years, trust, pieces of health and heart, but it also forced truth out. Secrets I'd buried, her greed, our shared fear of loss. Sometimes I look at her and see the little girl who used to hold my hand. Sometimes I see the woman who almost destroyed me and chose not to keep running. Moral stays the same. Betrayal costs more than money. It costs time you can't get back. Love you have to fight to rebuild. But if both sides are willing to face the ugly parts, it can cost just enough to teach what really matters. Family isn't perfect. It's the people who stay after the storm and help clean up the mess. If this full story, from the chemo chair shock to the lake cabin healing, touched you deep, if it made you hug your people a little tighter or think twice about secrets, subscribe to Stories Her Heart Holds. Notifications on. Real life keeps delivering twists, and I'll keep sharing them.
The final reckoning and the twist that changed everything. 2 years after that rainy weekend at the lake cabin, life had settled into something that almost felt normal. Almost. My cancer stayed in remission, full scans clear every 3 months. I moved to a small house with a garden, the kind of place I'd always dreamed about but never allowed myself because money was for emergencies. Emily helped me unpack boxes, plant roses, even hung curtains without me asking. She'd grown quieter, steadier, no more flashy posts. Her Instagram was private now, mostly pictures of coffee cups, sunsets, and once in a while, me. She'd paid back every cent of the $120,000 plus interest she calculated herself. Monthly transfers never missed. She worked 2 jobs for a while, office admin by day, freelance bookkeeping at night. Ironic, right? My accountant genes showing up late. She said it felt good to earn clean money. We talked more than we ever had, real talks, about her dad's letters, my hidden fears, her teenage rebellion that turned into adult greed. We laughed about how stubborn we both were. We cried when the memories got too heavy. Forgiveness didn't come in one big wave. It crept in slow, like morning light through curtains. Then came the phone call that flipped the script again. It was a Tuesday evening. I was making tea when my cell rang. Unknown number, international code. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. Margaret? A man's voice, rough, familiar in a way that made my skin prickle. It's Robert. Robert? Emily's father? The man who walked out 25 years ago? The man we both thought was dead? I gripped the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. You're supposed to be gone. Heart attack, last year. A long pause. They told you that? Who's they? Your sister. She handled everything after I disappeared. I asked her to. I was ashamed, sick, dying, I thought. But the doctors were wrong. It was something else, treatable. I've been living in a small town in Canada, quiet, alone, trying to stay out of your lives. My knees buckled. I sank into a chair. You let us think you were dead. You let Emily hate you. You let me raise her alone, thinking you didn't care. I didn't want pity or anger. I thought if I was gone, you'd both move on cleaner. I laughed, bitter, broken. Cleaner? You left us with debt, secrets, and a hole that never closed, and now you call? I saw the news, he said quietly.
Your story went viral last year. Someone leaked the airport video. Cancer mom confronts daughter at Paris airport. I recognized you, recognized her. I've been following from afar, saw she's trying to make it right." Silence stretched. I could hear him breathing, shaky. "I'm not calling for money or forgiveness. I wanted you to know I'm alive, and I'm sorry for all of it. If Emily wants to meet, I'll come. If not, I'll stay gone again." I hung up without answering. My hands shook so bad I dropped the phone. Emily came over an hour later, our usual Tuesday dinner. I didn't plan to tell her right away, but the second she walked in, she saw my face. "Mom, what happened?" I handed her the phone, showed the call log, told her everything. She went still. Then she started shaking, not crying, just trembling like she might break apart. "He's alive?" Her voice was tiny. "All this time? I thought he didn't want me. I thought I wasn't worth staying for." I pulled her into a hug. She didn't hug back at first, just stood rigid. Then she collapsed against me, sobbing so hard it hurt to hear. We sat on the floor for hours, talking, remembering the little things she still held onto. His laugh, the way he used to swing her around, the pain we'd both buried. The next twist came when she looked at me, eyes red but fierce. "I want to meet him, but not alone, with you." I wasn't sure I could face him, but I looked at my daughter, the girl who'd stolen from me, broken me, then fought to rebuild us, and I knew I couldn't let her walk into that alone. 3 months later, we flew to a tiny town outside Vancouver, neutral ground, a park bench by a lake, cold wind, gray sky. Robert was waiting, thinner than I remembered, gray hair, eyes full of regret. He stood when he saw us, didn't move closer, just waited. Emily stopped 10 feet away. I stayed beside her. She spoke first, voice steady, even though her hands shook. "You let me think you were dead. You let Mom carry everything alone. Why?" He looked at the ground. "I was a coward, sick, scared I'd drag you both down with me. Thought disappearing was kinder." "It wasn't," she said simply. He nodded. Tears fell. "I know." Then he looked at me. "Margaret, I don't expect anything. I just needed to say it out loud. I'm sorry for leaving, for the lie, for the years I stole from both of you." I didn't speak right away. The anger was still there, old, deep, but next to it was something new, tiredness, and maybe pity. Emily stepped forward. "I hated you for so long. Then I became the person who hurt someone I love. I get it now, how fear makes you run, how shame makes you hide." She took a breath. "I'm not ready to call you Dad, maybe never, but I'm here. That's something." He nodded, tears streaming. "That's more than I deserve." We didn't hug, didn't make promises. We just sat on that bench for an hour, awkward, quiet, honest. 3 broken people trying for the first time not to break each other more. On the flight home, Emily rested her head on my shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered, "for coming with me." I squeezed her hand. "We're in this together now, all the messy parts." Back home, life kept going. Emily still sends money, still visits, still calls every day. Robert writes letters, short ones, no pressure. We answer when we're ready. The betrayal started with $120,000. It ended with something money can't buy. Truth. Ugly, painful, long overdue truth. And in the end, that truth didn't just heal the wounds, it gave us a family we never really had before. Scarred, careful, real. If you've stuck with this story through every gut-punch twist, from the chemo chair betrayal to the airport showdown, the secret account, the dad who wasn't dead, if it made you question your own family secrets, your own forgiveness, then please subscribe to Stories Her Heart Holds. Hit the bell, because real hearts hold more pain and more hope than any of us expect. This chapter closes here, but life keeps writing sequels. Who knows what twist comes next?
5 years had passed since that cold bench in Canada. 5 years since Robert, alive,
broken and sorry, stepped back into our lives like a ghost who refused to stay buried. The three of us never became some picture-perfect family reunion. No holiday cards with smiling faces, no group photos, but we found a rhythm that worked. Careful, honest, no more secrets. Robert stayed in his small Canadian town. He wrote letters every few months, short, handwritten on plain paper, stories about his garden, the weather, how he volunteered at the local library reading to kids. Never asked for money, never pushed for more, just shared pieces of a quiet life he was trying to build right. Emily read every one, sometimes aloud to me over coffee, sometimes alone in her room, eyes wet. She answered back, postcards mostly, simple things. The roses you suggested are blooming. Mom's doing well, got a clean scan last week. No dad. Not yet. Maybe never. But she wrote. That was enough. Me? I let time do its work. The anger faded to a dull ache, like an old scar that only hurts when it rains. I gardened, read books, took long walks. Cancer stayed gone. Doctors called me a long-term survivor. I started a small support group for older women fighting alone, named it Quiet Strength. Emily helped run the meetings sometimes. She'd bring snacks, listen, share just enough of our story to give hope without spilling the ugly details. Life felt steady, almost peaceful. Then the final twist arrived, not with drama or airport scenes, but in the mail. A plain envelope, postmarked Canada. No return address at first glance, but I recognized the handwriting. Inside, a single sheet of paper, folded once, and a check. $250,000 made out to me, with a short note in Robert's careful script. Margaret, the insurance policy I took out all those years ago, it had a second clause I never told anyone about. Double indemnity if death was from illness. When they thought I was dying back then, I changed the beneficiary quietly, to you. Not Emily, you. Because I knew you'd carry everything if I couldn't. I cashed it out last month. The company finally settled after years of paperwork. This is what's left after taxes and what I needed to live simply. I don't want it back. I don't want thanks. I just want you to have something I should have given you decades ago. Security, peace, a chance to live without always watching the bank balance. If you don't want it, burn it, give it away, whatever feels right. I'm proud of the woman Emily's becoming, and prouder still of the mother who never stopped fighting for her, even when she didn't deserve it. Robert. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, staring at that check. Tears came slow, hot, silent ones. Not from anger, from something heavier. Relief mixed with grief for all the years we lost. Emily came over that evening. I didn't hide it, laid the check and note on the table. She read, then read again. Her hand covered her mouth. He kept this for you? All this time? I nodded. He never told us, even when he was dead, even when we hated him. Emily's eyes filled. What are you going to do? I looked at the amount, enough to travel if I wanted, enough to help others in my support group, enough to never worry about medical bills again. I think, I said slowly, I'll keep half, for me, for peace, and the other half I'll put in trust for you. Not now, when you're ready, when you have kids maybe, or when you need it most. No strings, just knowing it's there. She shook her head fast. Mom, no, I don't deserve... You deserve a chance to build something clean, the same chance I got when I hid that offshore account. We all hide things to protect the people we love, even when it hurts. She cried then, quiet, deep sobs. I pulled her close. We stayed like that a long time. Later that night, after she left, I called Robert. First time in years. He answered on the second ring, voice thin, surprised. Margaret? I got your letter, and the check. Silence. Then soft, I didn't expect you to call. I didn't expect any of this, I admitted, but thank you, for the money, for the truth, for trying, even late. He let out a shaky breath. I'm sorry it took so long. It did, but it's here now. We didn't talk long, no big promises, just acknowledgement. That was enough. Today, the garden is full bloom. Emily's engaged, quiet guy, steady job, kind eyes. They're planning a small wedding next spring. Emily's invited. He might come, he might not. Either way, the door's open. The betrayal that started in a chemo chair ended here, not with revenge, not with perfect forgiveness, but with choices, hard ones, honest ones. Money came back, more than I ever lost, but what mattered more was the trust we rebuilt, piece by painful piece. Betrayal costs everything at first, but sometimes if hearts stay open long enough, it gives back more than it took. If you followed this story from the hospital alert to this quiet garden ending, if it made you reflect on your own hidden hurts, unspoken apologies, second chances, then subscribe to Stories Her Heart Holds. Turn on notifications, because the best stories don't always end with fireworks. Sometimes they end with roses blooming, a check in the mail, and a family learning slowly, carefully, how to love again. This is where we leave them, but if life throws another twist, I'll be here to tell it. Thank you for staying till the end. 8 years after the check arrived in the mail, the garden had turned into something magical. Roses climbed the fence in thick waves of red and pink. A small wooden bench sat under the biggest oak, our spot for evening tea when Emily visited. The house felt lived in now, not just survived in. Photos on the walls, me with short silver hair smiling at a scan result, Emily's wedding day, small backyard ceremony, white dress, simple flowers, her little boy, my grandson, Liam, chasing butterflies in the grass at age 3. Liam was 5 now, dark curls like his mom, eyes wide and curious like mine used to be. He called me Nana Mags and asked endless questions. Why do roses have thorns? Why does cancer make people tired? Why did Grandpa Robert live so far away? Emily answered most of them honestly, age-appropriate honest. She never hid the hard parts anymore. Sometimes grown-ups make big mistakes, she'd say, but the brave ones try to fix them. Robert passed quietly 2 winters ago. Heart gave out in his sleep. No long illness, no suffering. He was 78. We got the call from a neighbor who'd become his friend. Emily flew up alone to handle things. She brought back a small wooden box, his letters to us over the years, a few old photos, and one sealed envelope addressed to both of us. She waited until Liam was asleep that night. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where I'd stared at that $250,000 check years before. She slid the envelope over. She left instructions, said open it together. Inside, 2 things. First, a short letter. Margaret and Emily, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Don't grieve long. I've had more time than I deserved. The money I sent wasn't just insurance. It was the last piece of what I owed. But there's one more thing. I bought a small life insurance policy on myself years ago after I came back. Small premium, big payout if I died naturally. $400,000. Beneficiaries? You two, split even. The company will contact you soon. Use it however you want. College for Liam, trips you never took, help for other women fighting alone. Whatever feels right. I never got to be the father or husband you needed, but I watched from far away, saw Emily become strong, saw you, Margaret, turn pain into purpose with your group. I'm proud, and I'm sorry. Always will be. Thank you for letting the door stay cracked. Robert. Emily's hand trembled as she read it aloud. When she finished, we just sat. No tears at first, just heavy, full silence. Then she whispered, "He kept protecting us, even after everything." I nodded slow. He did it the only way he knew how, from a distance, quiet, no fuss. The second thing in the envelope was a faded Polaroid, us 3, me, young Emily, maybe 4, Robert, standing in front of our old house. He's holding her on his shoulders, both laughing. I'm looking up at them, smiling like the world was safe. On the back, in his handwriting, the day I knew I had to get better, or at least try. We stared at that photo a long time. Emily broke the quiet. What do we do with the money? I thought about it. Half goes to Liam's future, college, whatever he dreams. The other half, we start a fund, through quiet strength. Scholarships for single moms fighting cancer. Travel grants so they can take their kids somewhere beautiful when treatment's done. Name it after him or after us. Doesn't matter. Just make it help. She smiled, small, real. After all 3 of us, the mistakes, the fixes, the love that stayed anyway. We did exactly that. The fund launched quietly, word spread in support circles, Women wrote thank you notes, took my daughter to Disney, first real vacation, paid rent so I could focus on scans, felt seen for the first time. Liam grew up knowing the full story, not the shiny version, the real one. He asked questions, we answered. He learned early, people mess up, big, but love, if it's stubborn enough, can bend back toward healing. One afternoon last summer, Liam ran into the garden holding that old Polaroid. Emily had framed it. "Nana Mags, look, Mommy says this is when you were all happy, were you?" I pulled him onto my lap. We were. Then life got hard, really hard. But we found our way back. Not the same happy, a stronger one. He nodded like he understood. Kids do sometimes. Emily watched from the doorway, coffee in hand. Our eyes met, no words needed. The betrayal that started with a bank alert in a chemo chair had rippled out into something no one could have predicted. A legacy of second chances, quiet apologies, and help for strangers who felt as alone as I once did. Money came, money went. But what stayed? The truth we finally told each other. The doors we left open. The roses that bloomed anyway. If you've walked this whole journey with us, from the hospital shock, the Paris airport confrontation, the hidden accounts, the dead father returned, the final checks, and now this gentle close. If any part of it made your chest tight, made you text someone you've been avoiding, or hug your kid a little longer, then please subscribe to Stories Her Heart Holds. Turn on notifications, because the most powerful twists aren't always loud. Sometimes it's a faded photo in the mail, a check you never expected, a grandchild asking questions, and a family, scarred, stubborn, real, choosing each other anyway. This is the end of Margaret and Emily's story. But stories like this, they don't really end. They just keep growing, like roses in a garden that almost didn't survive. Thank you for listening, for feeling it with me. Until the next heart opens its door.
10 years had slipped by since the very first bank alert buzzed on my phone in that cold chemo chair. 10 years since Paris selfies lit up my screen like cruel fireworks while I fought alone for breath. 10 years since I boarded a plane with shaking hands and a folder full of truth, ready to face the daughter who'd broken my world. Now the garden was ancient in the best way. Roses thick as velvet, oak branches heavy with leaves, the bench worn smooth from years of sitting, thinking, healing. Liam was 15, tall, thoughtful, always carrying a sketchbook. He drew the garden obsessively, close-ups of thorns, wide shots of blooming chaos, me in my favorite chair with tea and a blanket. He said the garden told stories better than people sometimes. Emily ran Quiet Strength full-time now. The fund Robert left had grown. Donations poured in after our story leaked wider through podcasts and quiet shares in survivor groups. Thousands of women had gotten plane tickets to see the ocean with their kids, rent covered during brutal treatment months, wigs chosen without shame. Emily named the travel grants Paris Promises, a private joke between us, a way to reclaim the word. She still sent me flowers every month, not fancy bouquets from shops, wild ones she picked herself, wrapped in newspaper, a note always tucked inside, for the woman who taught me roots matter more than views. Robert's letters stopped when he passed, but his voice lingered in the things he left behind. The Polaroid stayed framed on the mantel. Liam studied it often, tracing fingers over young faces. "You look happy here, Nana, like nothing bad could ever happen." I told him the truth one summer evening while we watered the roses. Bad things did happen, big ones, but happy isn't the absence of bad, it's what you build after. He nodded slowly. "Mom says you almost lost everything because of her, but you didn't lose her." "No," I said, "I almost did, but I chose not to let go completely, and she chose to come back." That night, Emily stayed over. We sat on the bench after Liam went to bed, stars sharp overhead, crickets loud. She spoke first. "I still dream about Paris sometimes. Not the good parts, the shopping, the lights. I dream about the airport, you walking toward me, the look on your face. I wake up sweating, thinking I'm still losing you." I reached for her hand. "You didn't lose me. You hurt me. Deep. But hurt isn't the end of love. It's just louder for a while."
She squeezed back. I never thanked you properly for showing up, for not pressing charges that day, for every time you could have walked away and didn't. You're my daughter, I said simply. Walking away was never really an option. We sat in comfortable quiet after that, the kind that doesn't need filling. The next morning, Liam found us still outside, coffee gone cold. He grinned. You two look like you solved the world. Emily laughed. Not even close, but we solved enough for today. I looked at them, my daughter, grown and scarred and kind, my grandson carrying pieces of all of us without knowing the full weight yet, the garden around us, alive and stubborn, blooming through every season. The betrayal that began with $120,000 stolen had traveled far, through airports and secrets, dead fathers who weren't dead, checks in the mail, apologies whispered late, a fund that lifted strangers, a boy who drew roses with thorns. It didn't erase the pain, nothing does, but it transformed it, turned poison into soil, made something grow that was stronger, deeper, more honest than what came before. If you've carried this story with me, from the gut punch of that first alert, through every confrontation and quiet reconciliation, every hidden truth revealed, every tear and every small victory, if it stirred something in you, anger, hope, a phone call you've been avoiding, then thank you, truly. Subscribe to Stories Her Heart Holds if these real, raw journeys matter to you. Turn on notifications. The world keeps handing us hard chapters. I'll keep telling the ones that show how hearts can still open even after they've been slammed shut. This is the garden now, quiet, blooming, remembered. And that's enough. AI disclaimer. This entire story, from the chemo chair to the final garden bench, was crafted as a fictional narrative for emotional engagement and storytelling purposes. While inspired by real human experiences of betrayal, illness, forgiveness, and family healing, no characters, events, or details are based on actual people or true occurrences. It is 100% original creative writing generated by Grok, an AI built by xAI. May your own gardens, whatever shape they take, bloom stubbornly, beautifully, and in their own time. Thank you for staying till the roses opened.